Welcome to this episode of Love Chose You, a celebration of marriage. This is part 2 of the first episode that we did, You Part 1. This is You 2. And we suggest that really you relax yourself and just listen to the story that we're going to share with you of Tom and Susan, as we told you we would do in the last episode. Because Tom and Susan we know very well. We've seen them over the course of their marriage, and we want to share their story with you because it's really an incredible story of the power of marriage and how anything can be resolved. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Free clothes, free education, free electronics, free food, free everything. Can you afford free? Get free products for yourself. Give away free products to others. Get paid. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Visit our websites. Your pocket will thank you.
Welcome back. As we told you before, in this episode, we're going to tell you the story of Tom and Susan. They are real people. That's just the names that we gave them because, some of you who are listening to might know them if we told you their actual names. But they've had a very interesting marriage. They've been married about as long as Delise and I have been married. And what we want to do is share to you why we actually started doing these series, but not only because of their story, but mainly because of their story, but also because of the many couples that we have known who've gone through things and survived. Some haven't survived, but Tom and Susan have survived. Tom grew up in a family with several brothers and sisters. And in his family, growing up, he was exposed by another family member to Playboy magazines. So this comes into baggage. This is why it was the first episode. He looked at Playboy magazines, and over that time, his idea of what a woman should look like was Playboy magazine. Now, the reason why that is such a problem, so interesting, is that the women in Playboy magazine don't even look like the woman in Playboy magazine. That's all fictitious and all made up. But as he is growing up, he got into looking and visualizing women in that way. When he grew up and got older into his teens, he, had Jet magazines, all of a sudden Jet magazines, and he'd put them on the walls, and which woman he liked, and so on and so forth. So his idea, he wasn't ever abusive to women, but his idea of what a woman should look like, or what type of woman he wanted, was fashioned from an early age. Susan, on the other hand, grew up in a very nice family. Let me first say that in Tom's family, his father never grew up in the house. His parents separated before he even realized it. His father was never in the house, but he was exposed through church and other experiences to father figures who he could look to and admire. And sometimes he did, many times he didn't. Susan, on the other hand, she grew up in a family. Her parents had separated too after when she was in her early years, about younger than 8, younger than 10. But let's say that, as far as I know. And what happened is, of course, her parents had a little bit of a volatile situation there. But her aunt and extended family, she was able to see a loving marriage, and she was able to experience what a family should be like, even though her biological parents were somewhat contentious with each other. But to make a long story short, she grew up and he grew up with baggage as well. She had some issues with some family members that weren't the most pleasant, and she grew up with that, but she was well adjusted. Tom, on the other hand, as he grew up and went to high school, that had an international population, a lot of young ladies or teenagers from around the world. So he was able to be in an environment where he was able to see and always look at beautiful women. As he continued on, he met Susan. And as he met Susan, they began to date. Now, they dated for quite a while before they got married, but Susan was never really aware, or maybe she did observe that he was the guy with the spinning head. Always, he had girlfriends. He had a girlfriend when he met her, and he had girlfriends. But during the time that they were going with each other, he was seeing women somewhat, and he had issues because he was always looking. Now, Susan is extremely beautiful, but that wasn't the issue of her beauty. Again, he had some issues as far as looking for what he thought he wanted, and when he met Susan, he pretty much realized that this was what he wanted. And she met all the qualifications, from personality to her physical appearance. Now, he wasn't the best looking guy in the world, but that didn't really matter because, he was a decent looking young man. But as they got married, they, in the early part of their marriage, they experienced some issues. And the issues that they experienced were such that Tom decided that he was going to go back to his original behavior before he got married, which was seeing women, having, different situations with different women. Even it got so bad that he was seeing prostitutes, which was really bad, right? But he didn't know how to handle the experiences that he was having in his marriage, because instead of really talking to Susan and saying, listen, this is what's going on, this is what I need. They were having some, sexual issues in the beginning, and he didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't know how to deal with it. And so he thought the best way to deal with it is, not really to say too much. Just, when it comes on, it comes around, but I'm going to do my thing, even though he was loving to his wife. He was loving to Susan. But what happened really became a major, major issue, because he got caught in a maze that he could not get out of. He was trapped. He was trapped at such a point where he told me at one point that when he was, roaming the streets and looking for whatever, or having different situations, one time he was driving around and he couldn't even recognize, he saw himself in the mirror, and he couldn't even recognize himself in the mirror. He had gone so far. He was so deep in. He had gone into an area that he just couldn't handle because he didn't know how to get out. Even though every night he would come in and he would pray. He would ask the Lord, Lord, get me out of this. Get me out of this situation. He wanted to change, and that's very key. He wanted to change, and he wanted to do the right thing. He was a spiritual brother, but spiritual individuals, people who are, children of the Lord, they get involved in things and get caught up in things as well. And he wanted to get out. His wife knew that Susan knew something was wrong with her husband, but she didn't know what it was. As a matter of fact, her mother had observed Tom, and she said, listen, Tom has stepped into something that he doesn't know how to get out of, and I'm going to pray for him. And her, as well as many other people, were praying for Tom so that he could get out of the situation. Although he functioned pretty much normally, there was something that was wrong, and most people who were interacting with Tom didn't have any idea that what was going on. Well, what do you think Susan did? Susan knew something was wrong with her man. She didn't know what the extent of it was, and he was deep into a lot of things. And this was with the opposite sex that, just has no place in the marriage whatsoever. So Susan did the only thing that she knew would work. Not the only thing that she could do. She did the only thing that she knew would work, because she could have left Tom. Didn't have any children, and they were doing all right financially, but it wasn't any big thing that they had to stay together. She did what she knew would work. She got on her knees and asked the Lord, help me to save my husband, because he's in a problem and I need to help him out of it. Now, she took into consideration that the reason why she was married to Tom was to save him. And the reason why Tom was married to her was for the same reason, to save her. Now, neither one of them realized the extent that this would go to, and how within that situation, they would each see the Lord work in such a way that they would begin to understand this is the way the Lord deals with his church. So what did Susan do? Susan put on her gospel armor. She strapped it on. And she said, I'm going in. And she went in. She went into the maze. She went into the maze, and just like a Marine, she put Tom on her back and brought him out. Saved him. She didn't have to. She saved him. And Tom wanted to come out. He needed his wife to understand where he was. He needed her to understand, this is what happened. I got caught up. I'm so deep in. I don't know how to get in. And she did what she had to do to save her marriage, to save her husband. And her husband was able to see Jesus in her. And that brought him around because she forgave him for many indiscretions. Not one or two, but many indiscretions. She found out about all of it. And some of it was really hurtful. And it came out because he had to tell this is what was happening. Because he didn't feel as though he could go on trying to be a man of God, is what she was trying to be, without letting her know, but it hurt at the same time. And they were able, though, with the Lord's help and the help of the Spirit, to come out of that and to be able to today, they're standing strong. Of course, Tom has to be very careful because there are triggers that can trigger him. And Susan has also to be aware that she has to be mindful of the situation and be able to provide what he needs. He provides what she needs so that they both know that they are right where they're supposed to be, embraced by the Lord. The Lord has forgiven him. She's forgiven him. He's forgiven himself. She's forgiven herself. The situation is working itself out. So we just thank the Lord, and we want to tell you that story because whatever you're going through, don't think that you can't save your marriage, no matter what is going on. We've only given you a small piece of the story, as much as we possibly can. There's a lot that went on there, but by God's grace, they're together. They're going strong. They still have their ups and downs. But Tom is walking in the Lord, and Susan is helping him walk in the Lord. They're helping each other walk in the Lord, and they plan to be in the kingdom together. So this is why we're doing this series, for them and for others, so we can actually talk about what goes on in marriage, what happens, what could happen, what you need to be prepared for, what line you're willing to cross, what baggage you bring in order to make sure that you understand how serious marriage is, and you make the necessary adjustments that you need to make in order to keep your marriage going. So thank you for joining us for this episode. We'll see you next time. Our next episode is going to be Inside the Mind of a Womanizing Husband. You do not want to miss that one. God bless, and remember, love chose you.